Your Legislators is made possible by the Minnesota Corn Growers Association. From developing best practices that help farmers better protect our natural resources to the latest innovations in corn-based plastics, Minnesota corn farmers are proud to invest in third-party research leading to a more sustainable future for our local communities. Minnesota Farmers Union, standing for agriculture, working for farmers. On the web at mfu.org.
Good evening and welcome to this week's version of Your Legislators. My name is Barry Anderson. I'm your host this week and all the weeks that follow until the legislature goes home of Your Legislators. This program, hence the catchy name, is your opportunity to talk to the legislators who represent you at our state capitol. This program belongs to you and we invite you to call in with your questions or to send them via the various electronic means which are all set out on the screen in front of you. We're going to begin our program this evening in a couple of minutes by introducing our guests, as we do each week. But I want to remind you that not only is this an opportunity to learn what's going on at the legislature, the Minnesota Channel, part of the public television network here in Minnesota and on many cable systems across the state of Minnesota, has regular nightly programming on the activities at the legislature. And we invite you to spend some time with the Minnesota Channel. But let's begin this evening, as we do each week, by introducing our distinguished panel of guests. We're going to give them an opportunity to tell you a little bit about their background, the committees they serve on, how long they've been in the legislature, and that will set up the inquiries that will follow about the issues of the day. Let's begin with Senator Jen McEwen from Duluth, District 8 in Duluth. Senator McEwen, we're delighted that you could join us this evening. Tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you very much, Justice Anderson, for having me on the show this evening. It's a real pleasure to join you all and to talk about the issues of the day and what's happening at the legislature. I am the state senator representing Duluth in the Minnesota State Senate. I have been serving now for just over 2 years. So I was just served my first term and then was reelected last fall. And I'm really excited to jump in this year to begin the work again. And I'm an attorney. My work is really around public interest law. I've been a public defender and worked for legal aid and that type of thing. I have 2 teenage children who go to school in the public schools in Duluth, and my husband is a teacher, also a public school teacher, and really proud to represent my community at the Capitol. And happy to join you tonight.
We're delighted to have you. And we're going to talk a little bit about the public defender piece because there's been some developments on that in the course of this legislative session that are pretty important. And we're going to cover that in a minute. We'll get back to that soon. Let's go to Senator Bill Weber from Luverne, District 21. Senator Weber and I were discussing before the program began some stories about southwestern Minnesota. I had the privilege of practicing law in Fairmont at the beginning of my career. And we've discovered that the wind blows and the snow moves in southwestern Minnesota, and that involves some issues these days. Senator Weber, tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you, Justice Anderson. It's good to be with you tonight. And yes, I represent the southwest corner of Minnesota. My district, District 21, includes all or parts of 9 counties. As we go down the west side, I have Lincoln, Pipestone, Rock, and then as we go east, I have Murray, Nobles, Cottonwood, Jackson, the west half of Watonwan, including the city of St. James, and I'm getting closer to Fairmont. I have 4 townships in the northwest corner of Martin County. So I have about 72 miles of border with South Dakota and 74 or 6 with Iowa. So the districts keep getting bigger all the time. I'm beginning my 4th term, my 11th year in the state Senate. This year, I serve as the lead on the tax committee. I also serve on the energy and utilities committee as well. And so it's good to be with you and to talk about the issues that are facing us.
Do I recall correctly, Senator Weber, that you might have had a little tour of duty as the mayor of Luverne? Am I recalling that correctly?
I spent 16 years in local government, 8 years as council member and 8 years as the mayor, yes.
I mean, I did a tour of duty as a city attorney. I have great deal of respect for those long city council meetings that go on until 1 or 2 in the morning. So maybe we'll have an opportunity to talk about that as well. Let's move to Representative Dave Baker from Willmar, District 16B. Representative Baker's been a frequent guest on our program over the years. We're delighted to have you with us, Representative Baker. Give us a little background. And I think you had a tour of some time in either city government or city affairs of some sort, as I recall.
Barry, I did not. I ran for the very first time for the state of Minnesota. So this is kind of a newbie. I was on the Willmar Municipal Utilities for 7 years. I was an appointment by the mayor here locally. So this is sort of my first run at elective office, but been doing this for about 8 years. In my 9th year, representing Candioi County, District 16B. I'm a small business owner. My wife and I kind of run a small hospitality company. We operate and manage a couple hotels. We also run a little cruise line business called Green Lake Cruises in Spicer, Minnesota. We've been doing that for a number of years, and been in the hospitality restaurant industry for a while. Really enjoyed this time here, and I've been kind of working a lot on workforce issues. I'm the lead in the Workforce and Finance Committee in the Minnesota House. I also spend a lot of time with the Human Services, both policy and finance. So dealing a lot with mental health issues, substance use disorder, some children stuff, and homelessness. So that's where my focus has been this year as well.
We've had some interesting news with respect to the workforce in the last few weeks, including most recently this week, about some employment numbers, and that will perhaps be the topic of some conversation as we move through the program. But I want to go to Senator McEwen again and talk a little bit about public defender piece, because one of the legislative decisions that has already been made, and as I understand it, the governor has signed the bill, involved a substantial injection of funding into our public defender system. And maybe you could tell us, Senator McEwen, what that was all about and the significance to the people of the state of Minnesota.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. And I think I neglected in my introduction to also note the committees that I'm on. I'm the chair of the Senate Labor Committee. I'm the vice chair of Environment, Legacy, and Climate. And I'm also on the Transportation Committee and the Energy Committee. So but as to the public defenders issue, this is an issue that has been a long time coming. Public defenders in our state and around the country are chronically overworked and have enormous caseloads. And the staff also that works at the public defender's office carry enormous caseloads trying to support those cases. I think that what we've seen and what we've heard called for in the last couple of years is a couple of things. One is pay parity with prosecutors. That's also always a big deal when public defenders and prosecutors compare their salaries, even though they may have the same sort of trial experience and years under their belt doing this work for the community. Public defenders have been paid less than prosecutors doing the work on the other side of the courtroom. So that pay parity is a really big deal. And then just the increased funding for all of the offices around the state. And one of the things that has been really heartening to see, and we've seen it across the two houses, the House and the Senate, and then the governor's administration recognizing this as well. In the House in particular, we saw Representative Jamie Becker-Finn just really, she's a prosecutor, and she brings that knowledge that the system doesn't work without public defenders, right? No matter how you feel about a certain case, we all have strong emotions around different stories that we may hear about things that happen in our community, spanning the spectrum. But part of the fundamental foundation for our society is that everybody deserves a defense, a fair defense, to be presumed innocent until they're found guilty, and to have that vigorous defense. So the public defender system is just essential in our state, and the integrity of that system is built on funding it adequately. So it's really good to see.
2 quick points about that. One of the issues with the public defender services, of course, many of our viewers, not all, but many, of our viewers are from Greater Minnesota, and public defender resources in Greater Minnesota have been a particular issue, and this funding improvement may very well help with that problem. The other point that I wanted to make is that this was a bipartisan effort, as I recall the vote.
Yeah, that's my understanding. Yep.
So, Representative Baker, let's talk about workforce development, because that's an area where you're working, and then we'll go around the table on that topic. We did get some good news this week about some increase in employment after some news in the preceding months that perhaps was not quite so good. Maybe you could talk a little bit about workforce development issues and what legislative responses we're likely to see in this session on that topic.
I think almost every in the state government, in jobs and private industry, everybody is struggling with workforce. What do we do? How do we pay them appropriately? Right now across the state, we're dealing with a lot of issues and bills, listening to a lot of very impassioned administrators and nursing home operators. We've got folks with group homes, and the list is endless about how can we make sure we have enough resources and reimbursements for these places like nursing homes and mental health facilities, where they only get so much money based on the reimbursements from the Medicaid, Medicare payments. And we can't get that money to them fast enough because of the way inflation and the supply and demand for people have really taken up. And so we've got wings in nursing homes that are sitting there empty, and nursing homes then have a much harder time making the payments and purchasing the food. That's also another 30% higher than it was a year ago. So we're really, really struggling to make sure we get as much resources to our state employees that need those reimbursements right for, again, those kind of desperate situations we need to get there. I don't think we've ever seen such a shortage in every area, whether it's psychologists, nurses, nursing home cares, PCAs. It is quite something, and I don't think there's a hearing that goes by and a bill that doesn't go by without really some serious concerns about workforce and the work we need to do, and the funding we're going to have to get them, or our nursing homes are not going to be around.
Senator Weber, workforce development, your thoughts?
Well, certainly, I don't know that we've ever seen a time where every business is out there looking for workers. I mean, we have restaurants in my area that have always been open 7 days a week, and now due to a lack of help, they're closed 1 or 2 days just in order to be able to give people the time off, and they just do not have enough workers to cover all the shifts. And we see the same thing in our nursing homes. We see the same things in most all of our businesses. We have car dealerships and mechanic shops that are needing people. Which is just virtually every business is in need of workers. And part of it is, quite frankly, too, there's also a shortage of trained help, whether we're talking about mechanics, plumbers, electricians, carpenters. We really need to make sure that we have programs available that are for our young students who are going out of high school and maybe even starting during high school, that help train them. I think we have reached a point where everyone recognizes if someone needs a 4-year degree, we need to make sure that they're prepared to go off to college and pursue that 4-year degree. But we also need to make sure that there are opportunities for our students in high school and as they leave high school to have good training in 2-year programs, for example, in the career vocational avenue. And there are many good jobs out there. There are many needs for these people. And certainly we need to make sure that we offer that whole spectrum of opportunity.
Senator McEwen, I'm guessing that Duluth is in the same position as our other communities on workforce development. Your thoughts on that issue?
That's correct. I think as my colleagues here have discussed in some good detail, we have a workforce shortage across the board. It's true. And there's a lot of things that we can do to address that. We can, as Senator Weber was talking about, really encourage programs to help people get into the trades. There's a real shortage of of workers in the trades and a lot of opportunity there. Not having everybody, and not everybody wants to or needs to or should go for a 4-year degree. That's absolutely correct. People should, there's lots of different options for younger people after high school. So really exploring and developing the array of opportunities. But, one of the things that I think our work shortage really speaks to right now is the wealth disparity that we have in our society. Right now, we're in a situation, I think, especially post-pandemic, where we really are seeing the effect of people having, in some ways, because of the pandemic, not able to work at home or scraping by, working part-time, figuring things out, and really doing a reassessment of what their labor is worth, what their time is worth, and realizing that getting paid $13 an hour, it's just not going to cut it any longer, right? And we've heard from a number of employers too, up locally in Duluth. I've heard this from our nursing homes and care centers, and in other areas too, childcare, that those positions are very give very low pay, not necessarily out of the choice of the people running those centers. They just don't have the funding. They'd like to pay people more. We need to pay people more, because a lot of the time now people can just look and rightfully say, this is very hard work. It is very hard work, the caring professions. And people do it because they love it. But at some point, you can understand why somebody might look over and say, if I get a job at the local fast food place or whatnot, I can go and make $17, $18 an hour, which is great. I'm glad we're seeing those wages go up, but we also have to make sure that we keep pace with that, with this wage correction. People need to live. They need to thrive. They need to be able to pay their bills, to support their families. And so we need to make sure that the state keeps pace with where we're going in that correction.
Senator Weber, I'd like to move to an issue that has been in the news in the last few days, and that is the question of the status of a bonding bill. There has been some discussion about that bonding bill, and we often get questions here about specific programs, specific projects rather, including chemistry building at the U and water treatment facilities and other things that are of concern to particular communities. Can you bring the viewers up to date on the status of that bonding bill discussion that we've been hearing about over the last few days?
At this point, it's my understanding that the Finance Committee, I believe, in the Senate, and I do not serve on that, is soon to take up the bonding bill that the House has sent over. And certainly there are many of us that do believe in having a bonding bill. Obviously, wastewater projects funded through the PFA are important to our local governments. HEAPR funds for the repair and improvement of our college buildings and transportation funds for our roads and bridges. And there's just a multitude of needs and uses out there for bonding money. Our position has been, we also, in a period of an unprecedented surplus, we need to be talking about getting money back to the taxpayers of Minnesota, because they're the ones that gave us a $19 billion surplus. I know that it's quoted at $17.5 billion, but that's because there's been an accounting change to allow for inflation, so they reduced that by $1.5 billion. But I think we are concerned that as we look at the governor's proposed budget, which increases the biennial budget by $11 billion, we look at all the other money that has been spent and that is being proposed to be spent. At the end of it, it's going to be the taxpayers that are left out in the cold without any type of tax reform or tax rebates or elimination of Social Security benefits from taxation. And we think that with this kind of a surplus, we have the capacity to deal with some tax reform and tax relief for our taxpayers before we start incurring additional debt to them and to them future money with interest and what have you. So That is what we would really like to see happen.
Senator McEwen, your thoughts on the bonding bill discussion that is now underway in the Senate?
Oh gosh, I sure hope we get one. I mean, I was quite shocked actually in my first term as a senator to see all of the preparation that went into the bonding bill. I remember being in Duluth and seeing Senator Bach at the time was the chair of the Senate Bonding Committee, and they came on a tour on a really nice chartered bus up to Glen Sheen in Duluth, and all of the local projects put together these beautiful presentations, got all their ducks in a row. We presented to these legislators who were on the committee, and then to see at the end of the day that the bonding bill did not get across the line was shocking. It was just shocking. And I'm sure there's plenty of blame to go around, and I wasn't part of those committees, and I don't mean to assign any certain blame to anyone, but that means that this year we are long overdue for a bonding bill for basic infrastructure projects. So as Senator Weber said, we have water treatment infrastructure that is overdue for funding. We have very basic projects. I mean, this is not the kind of projects that we're talking about that are some sort of pet projects for people. These are basic community infrastructure projects that are overdue, that people have been waiting for, our local communities. So I'm hoping that we're going to see it come through, and I'm hoping it's not going to be held up by political games.
Representative Baker, bonding issues. I realize the House has acted, but we want to hear your position on that.
Well, we've acted, Barry, and it's now in the hands of the Senate. We let our colleagues know that it's on its way. I will tell you overall, I think it's a good bill. I think it's about $1.9 billion. It's by far the largest bonding bill in state history. It was actually two bills. There was some borrowing in one of the bills with our GO borrowing bill that was, I think, about 1.5, and then the other one was what we call the cash bill. When we don't borrow, we don't have to borrow money for that. We'll just pay cash out of the bottom line. I ended up not supporting either one. Not that I didn't want to see a bonding bill happen. My concern was we have so much money on the bottom line. I didn't think we needed to actually have to borrow the money, and I wish that we would actually use a lot of that kind of one-time money, which is what bonding bills are, that we didn't have to actually use it and put it on the credit card. I think this would have been a unique time to do that. Also, to Senator Weber's point, we made a lot of promises to people when we came here, and I think it's really important that we get some other work done, like tax reform, our Social Security tax, getting some of these things that we really had to work on before we sort of dealt with this extra bill. Some people refer to it as the dessert bill. I know this is important infrastructure, and I don't want to treat this like it doesn't matter if we get it done. It really does. But I would say that, with a lot of the projects that didn't get done last year, I'm happy it's over in the Senate. The Senate will be able to kind of tear it apart a little bit. It'll probably come back to the House. There'll be some last-minute negotiations, and I'm sure the bill will get better as it moves along. But again, I couldn't support it really for only those reasons, but I really do support. It was a good bill, and I support a lot of the kind of projects that are in it this year.
So we've had some comment about an issue that viewers in Belgrade and Swift County are concerned about, and they've asked us to inquire of the panel on the status of the discussions about the taxation of Social Security benefits. Senator McEwen, we didn't give you an opportunity to talk about that. Let's have you start with that. Where are those discussions about what, if anything, should be done relative to the taxation of Social Security benefits?
Yeah, well, there's differences of opinion within my own caucus. I think that, and we've seen some of that. Some people have spoken out against a full elimination of the Social Security state tax, because overall, when you look at who the great bulk of that money would go to, it would be to wealthier retirees. And so that said, there are many of us who are very keenly aware that ever since the Pawlenty years and not having a large enough LGA allotment for our cities, and my city in particular of Duluth, we've seen throughout the state that because we haven't kept pace with taking that income tax revenue and distributing out through the states to our municipalities. In turn, our municipalities have had to levy and do local flat taxes and property taxes. And those property taxes are really very hard on people with fixed incomes. They are very regressive as opposed to an income tax. So I'm very sympathetic to the idea that people in lower incomes and middle incomes, because of this regressive taxation pattern that we've been in, are being nickeled and dimed, and that includes in their taxation. And so I am very sympathetic to giving relief to people in middle and lower incomes. However, I am not very sympathetic to the idea of a full tax relief, because essentially that's a tax cut to the rich. And we need to go in a completely different direction than what that would do. And we have a lot of very important needs in our state. The surplus actually represents that we've been underfunding essential government services for years: education, childcare, healthcare, social services. We don't have yet a paid family medical leave program, which we should have had decades ago. There's a lot of catch up that we have to do. We have to replace all of the lead pipes in our entire state, a project that would have been nice if we started a decade or two ago. We knew we had to do it. So we have a lot of needs that have been neglected. And so it's absolutely appropriate that those with the most resources, who have gained the most from our society, the wealthiest individuals and corporations, should be paying the most. And so I don't support a full elimination. I know that there are some of my colleagues in my caucus who are fighting very hard for that. And I'm very sympathetic to the idea that we want to provide tax relief to retirees. But again, if you look at that, the bulk of it, the bulk of that money would go to the wealthiest retirees. And that specifically is not something I can support. I hope that at the end of the day, we're going to find some kind of compromise there.
Senator Weber, Social Security taxation.
Well, Minnesota is one of only 11 states that actually taxes Social Security benefits. And it's time that we got our name off of that list. Now, we can talk about the wealthy getting a tax break with this, but at some point, we're going to start seeing a great reduction in the number of those wealthy people. And quite frankly, there are a lot of people who are paying income tax on their Social Security benefits who are not wealthy people at the end of the day. And so we need to provide a total elimination of Social Security, of Minnesota state tax on Social Security benefits. These people worked for that money hard they contributed into this, into the fund, and they paid income tax on the money they earned, on which they paid Social Security tax, and now we ask them to pay it again. And quite frankly, that is wrong. And so we need to do that. And in addition, we need to also look at the rates that we are charging for our taxpayers. A Republican plan that was rolled out last week basically dealt with a 1% cut in the first two tiers of tax rates, dealt with a refund to all Minnesotans, dealt with child tax credit, and as well as some property tax reform, increasing the homestead exemption for residential, ag, resort properties. All these things need to be addressed. And we can talk about saying that the surplus is a result of us being underfunded. But if you look at our budget in the state of Minnesota, it has increased substantially in the last 10 years. And quite frankly, as we look at the number of dollars that we have been spending, we have to recognize that not every program takes money, but not every program achieves success as a result of the extra money that we put into it. And it's time that we took a step back and said we can't keep spending at that kind of a rate. And particularly with an $11 billion projected increase in the state budget. And so it is time for us to provide that tax relief to the people of Minnesota.
Representative Baker.
And again, I would have to echo a lot of what Senator Weber had to say. I think that with only 11 states left, the part of our issue now that we're having is the brand and the image of Minnesota. We've already been, we're on the higher end of most tax rates, most tax indexes when you look around. We're just losing too many of our Minnesotans out of the state of Minnesota. They're voting with their feet. They are leaving the state because they can go elsewhere. And I'm told this many times over. I can save $40,000 on different things. And it might not just be their Minnesota income tax, but it's the thought of us still, charging any kind of income tax on Social Security income that they really shouldn't have to do anymore. I think we need to be taken off this list. It's costing us more money when we lose Minnesotans that are newly retired, still have some decent income going on, and yet they've paid their more than fair share over the years to help us with our services here too. It's something that most states have figured out. This is a losing issue. If we don't fix it, we're going to lose these people. And I think that's really important that we keep talking about this. I think it should be a full repeal of Social Security tax. And it's really what most folks campaigned on last fall. So I do hope we can find compromise. Like the senators have said, I think that's an important area. I hope that's something that we can really get our arms around. And again, it should be one of our top priorities that we do this year. So I'm still pushing hard, my colleagues in the House, that's something that we can agree to finish up, deal with it one time, and then we'll move on.
And Barry, if I could add one comment there, the cost to provide this type of tax relief is $1.26 billion. And when we have a $19 billion surplus, if we can't provide that type of tax relief to the senior citizens of Minnesota, when are we going to be able to do it? And so it is time.
Senator McEwen, do you want the last word on this, or should we move on?
We can move on, but I have one quick word, just one observation more. My observation is just, for me, it really is a question of who are we focusing on serving in our states? And again, it goes back to that wealth inequality piece. When I talk to my constituents, I don't talk to many people who tell me that they could save $40,000 if they move or if they did something different. I talk to people who say, I don't know how I am going to pay my heating bill. I don't know how I am going to continue to pay for my childcare. I don't know how these 2 or 3 jobs are going to get me by. So when we're talking about providing relief to people, to working Minnesotans, let's get serious about that. What does that look like? It means making sure that people's basic needs are met. It means relaxing the burden of property taxes on people who are on fixed incomes. It doesn't mean another cut of taxes for the wealthiest Minnesotans. It just doesn't. So I think it's just a question of framing. The question of branding is sort of, I get it, but I'm not worried about people moving from Minnesota because they're worried they're being taxed too much. I'm worried about Minnesotans being able to live and get by.
Well, I think we've explored this issue pretty thoroughly, and I'm guessing that future panels in the weeks ahead will have an opportunity to talk some more about it. So let's move on. Viewer from Stearns County, and I'm going to direct this to you, Representative Baker, because it's adjacent to your Candy, Ohio County area. This viewer is concerned about nursing home issues, and this person is on a nursing home board. Funding and reimbursement are problems. Expenses have gone up. Reimbursement is often late and inadequate. Nursing homes aren't able to meet their debt ratios. And this viewer claims that multiple nursing homes have closed in the last year, mentioning it might be as many as 17. What's going to happen on nursing home funding issues? Let's start with you, Representative Baker, and we'll move around our virtual table.
And that is such a great question that the caller had brought in. I think that there's nobody here on this panel that will argue that we have that one solved at all. We don't. And we need to make sure that we address the issues of the workforce shortage, the reimbursements as well. The great bill we did back in 2015 to really get our services back up to a cost basis for these nursing homes was really out of the box thinking. It was really well thought through. I was a part of helping craft that back in my first year. What's happened now is about 18 months later, when the catch-up part of that service fees and how do we pay for the nursing homes to get them caught up again, there's this delay in how they get their fare reimbursements to today's dollars. So a lot of the nursing homes are getting paid better than they used to. Now today, 7, 8 years later, it has gone very flat and backwards because of the inflation factor has really hit nursing homes hardest. Again, the reimbursements of what we pay them, it's a single source rate in Minnesota. So private pay is paying the same thing as our Medicaid, Medicare rates that are paying. And so we need to increase those reimbursements. We need to make sure we look at that again. But also they've got to get their reimbursements with current costs more quickly to those nursing homes so that they can pay the bills that are more reflective of today's costs. So again, we need more people to be in those nursing homes. A lot of the focus this year is to try to imagine what we have to do to get those new entry levels, the PCAs, the personal care attendants, in that $22 to $25 range an hour is what we're going to have to pay to get them. We've got too many nursing homes sitting there with a wing that's empty. They're a 100-bed unit, and they're only using 70 rooms because that's all the staffing they have. But yet they've got people wanting to get in the door as fast as they would get them open. So it's a huge lift this year. It will be costly, and we've got to make that one of our issues because it's plugging up our hospitals. There's no place for people to go in recovery for some short-term nursing stays. So we have to really focus on this, I think, in the near term, and I hope that we get on this right away.
Senator Weber.
Well, certainly, I think nursing homes across the state are experiencing the same problem, and it's been a perennial problem, one that keeps coming back every time that there's a solution that is put forth and works for a while, but we have always been in terms of our Medicare, Medicaid payments. I remember when I was even going into the hospital business, when I was on the local hospital board on the council. We always fought this deep rural discrimination that's out there for payments. They thought because we were out in the country, we didn't have the kind of costs that they had in the big city. And yet, what we always found out in my area, we were competing with the large hospitals over in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So we were having to pay higher rates to get our personnel, and we were never getting credit for that type of thing. So there's been an injustice in that reimbursement system for a long time, and also, yes, we need to make sure that we are training the people, future staffing that we need. Right now, when you see wings of our nursing homes sitting empty just because they do not have the staffing, that is a serious problem. So there are multiple avenues that we have to address in order to deal with the problems in our nursing homes. And that, quite frankly, all of our rural areas continue to lose nursing homes every year.
Senator McEwen, I know you touched on this issue earlier, and of course it's been an issue of some concern for you. We've talked about it on this program before, but if you tell our viewers a little bit your thoughts on this issue.
Yeah, it has reached a crisis point. I've been to a couple of the nursing homes in Duluth and talked with them about this. And as Senator Weber says, there's a tremendous workforce problem. I think that, where we may have some divergent opinions between myself and my colleagues, perhaps, I don't know, but maybe just in what we're talking about for the solutions for that. We can't force people either through training or just telling them we need them really bad to go and work a really difficult job for very low pay and hardly any benefits. We just can't do that. What we have to do is make sure that the wages are raised to a level where those tremendously difficult care jobs are paid what their labor is worth, which is a lot. It's the kind of job that people should be making a living, thriving, family-supporting wage out of. And right now, they're being paid as if they're dispensable. So you can't blame people for leaving a job where they feel dispensable. And so what we need to do is to act as a state to make those jobs good jobs and to make sure that people have the basic safety net underneath them to support them and their families also so they can stay in these caring professions. So there's a number of pieces we can do. It really is about supporting our workforce so they can do this work. We can't just drag people in there and make them do these jobs. We have to actually make the jobs attractive to do.
The other thing, Barry, we need to remember is that, quite frankly, it's government that has created the disparity in the employee salary anyway, because our nursing homes are dependent on what the government pays for our people to be there through Medicare, Medicaid, and so if there's anyone that's let our nursing homes down, it is government.
Well, I would add, if I might just very quickly too, I think it also goes back to the question that you had about the surplus and some discussion we've had about, we have this surplus. What does it mean? What does it reflect? And what is the best course of action? And I stand by what I said earlier is that what the surplus reflects in large part is that we have been underfunding our basic government services for years. And so this is a perfect example where we could be using that money. We should ongoing be funding these things at a much higher level.
We will no doubt have the opportunity to discuss this again in the weeks ahead. We have a viewer, actually we have a couple of viewers, and on both sides of this question, which is also fairly common. Viewers who want to know about what one viewer describes as the dog protection bills, Senate File 1316, House File 1299. These are the what I call the trapping bills. Very strong views on both sides of on this issue. And one viewer noted that this is multiple sessions that there hasn't seen action on this and wants to know if this is the session where there will be action. Let's start with you, Representative Baker. Anything going on in that territory?
We had some trappers in this week and I had a really good conversation. I am absolutely not an expert on this area, but I do know a few people in my area that have taken great strides to make sure that this trapping issue and the dilemma is addressed. I think they actually came in and showed me a lot of the traps that they're selling today are very safe, or I should say very thoughtful when it comes to not wanting to catch an animal like a dog that would be kind of roaming around. They showed me the tubes that they go into. They're not a typical of the claw type of a snap that you can think of. Nobody wants to see a dog or a domestic animal in a trap. Trapping is important for our industry in our state. Trapping is important so that we keep the beaver dams down and the other things that cause problems if we don't manage those kind of resources. So again, it's a delicate balance. I don't think that we are doing a bad job in Minnesota. I think we can always look at other things, but it's an important industry in Minnesota. I think they're doing a lot of good things to make sure that they're doing it as safely as they can. Again, I appreciate hearing from both sides of this issue, and I heard from the trappers this week. I need to hear more from others as well. But again, I'd like to recognize the work that they've done to try to recognize some of the concerns that they've had.
Senator Weber, trapping.
Well, I agree with what Representative Baker has said. The trapping industry has made good progress, and we cannot pass the type of trapping prohibitions that are wanted out there. Even in my area, we see substantial beaver activity in some of our drainage systems, which cause flooding and problems for the farming community, for our local roads, and it's important to have a healthy trapping industry to control those situations. And I don't. Number one, I'm not going to vote for any of the trapping bills that have been offered so far. And I think at this point, it might be difficult to see any of them go through this year. Time will tell.
Senator McEwen?
Yeah, I have to say that I'm not, I feel like I have to defend the beaver here. That beaver are an amazing species and do amazing work out in our forests. But I also am quite sympathetic to the fact that there are a number of people in our state who make their living and who support their families through trapping. That I'm very sympathetic with. I'm looking at these bills right now. I haven't made a hard decision on it. I'm overall not a fan of trapping. I think it's something that's pretty rough. So I'm taking it under consideration right now. I'll be taking a look at those bills in detail.
Very good. So one of the topics that comes up in a funding year, and I'm not going to ask it in any specific way. I'm going to give each of our guests an opportunity to talk about it. But an important part of the Minnesota budget is K-12 education, or what I would call K-12 education. We now probably call it pre-K to 12 education. There are numerous issues that come up in the context of education. It's not just a funding question. And I want to give each of our guests an opportunity to talk about that issue, how they see it, what aspects of it are important to them, and what message would they like to send to their constituents. And so let's start with you, Senator McEwen. K-12, pre-K-12 education. Your thoughts?
I'd like to see Minnesota be, again, one of the premier educational centers of the world. And when I say that, I mean pre-K through university, through public university. I think that we have the resources, we have the expertise, we have professionals, the know-how to be able to provide free to the user at the point of service or very low cost public education, pre-K through 4-year public university. That is what we should be doing in Minnesota. Many of our peer nations did this years and years ago. It's not rocket science. And this is the kind of thing that a good society provides for its people. So I'm thinking big when I think of education. I'm thinking about how do we provide comprehensive education for our people, starting when they're very, very young and all the way through university or through the trades as well. We talked a little bit about alternatives to going to the university. So 2-year colleges, trades, training programs, and the like. Those things should be free or very low cost to the people who are qualifying to get into those programs. So that's what we should be shooting for. We have the wealth. We are a wealthy state in the wealthiest nation to ever exist on the planet. And many of our peer nations have done this years ago. So we should do that. That's what we should do.
Representative Baker.
Ooh, that's a lot. That's a lot of freebies there because there's no free lunch in my world. Again, we pay a rich property tax in our state. We all pay those when you have some property that you own. I agree, though, that we need to do some better, smarter funding with our schools. I do believe we need to invest more in our social workers in our schools. We need to have more teachers. And I think the earlier teachers, when they get into the classroom, should be paid better. I don't think that our teachers just out of college for the next 5 years should be paid what they are today. I've been saying that from day one since in the letter that we need to pay our newest teachers more. And we need to find new ways of doing this. I think to attract more people to the industry is another great concern. We've been trying to find ways of recruiting teachers of color. We're not getting people that are grabbing onto it. Largely, I think because the challenges of being a teacher today is nothing short of very difficult. Having just the summers off is not sometimes enough of a break for what they go through for the school year with the challenges that teachers have. I have a bill in this year that's getting a lot of chatter. Hasn't gotten a hearing yet, but I talked to the chair this week about this, and she's definitely considering hearing. But to allow our local school districts to work through the issue, should we do a 4-day school week? There is a number of schools in Minnesota that have done this for the last 12 to 15 years. They have gotten kids through K through 12 through the entire system on 4 days. They typically go Tuesday through Friday. And it's not the right decision for all school districts. It's a very complicated question to ask about daycare, transportation, school sports, but a number of schools have done this, and they would never go back, according to the administrators and the families. They really like it. Teacher collaboration is better. There's the recruiting for teachers in those schools with 4 days. They are not short of teachers in those school systems right now that have 4 days. There's some, again, it's not for everybody, but I think the school districts, the school boards should make that decision, not the commissioner of education. And that's where that lands right now. And they have not given anybody that exception. So I just think there's a lot of rethinking education here in Minnesota, and it's not all about the money. I'm certainly supportive of doing some good stuff this year, social workers, but we have other things to think about how we can get our kids the best help they can.
Senator Weber.
Well, once again, quite frankly, I think government has become the problem in education. The mandates that we have put on our schools always cost more money than they are ever receiving. We go back, and this goes back not only to the state government, but to the federal government. For many years, our schools have been underfunded from the federal government for our special education programs. And that's money that they have to make up somewhere else because they're required to provide those particular services. And so as we look at the current situation, even as we look at all the bills that are going through the legislature right now, we see another intense spending demand being placed on our local school districts. Earlier it was mentioned about the family leave bill. This is going to cost all local units of government millions and millions and millions of dollars, including our school systems. I had a smaller school system sent me an outline of what they're looking at, what they need to do in terms of hiring additional people. And they went through all the added costs that are being provided them with the mandates that are coming through the legislature this year. And we're looking at a situation that is many, many hundreds of thousands of dollars for this small school system. And they said, there's no way we're going to get that kind of money from the state, and we don't have the money to do it. And so I think that, we have to be realistic in what we are expecting. We have to be realistic in what we are requiring. And while there's going to be additional money spent for education, we also have to take a look at the other side of the equation and what are we forcing them to spend. And that has always been a problem, and it's becoming an even larger problem right now.
Higher education. We've only got about a couple of minutes left. Very quickly on that issue, we'll give you, Senator Weber, the first go on this. Just very quickly, higher education, what do you see from a funding standpoint this year?
I'm not entirely sure. I don't serve on that committee. I haven't heard a great deal about that other than the fact that we are seeing some substantial enrollment issues within our college systems. And I do know that some of the things that we have been proposing for career technical training really helps our Minnesota colleges because they're the ones that are more spread throughout our district and are actually willing to provide some of those type of programs for our students. And so I think we need to continue down that road that will provide them an enrollment that they currently haven't had in many instances. And there's more I could say, but we're running close on time, and I'll let my other colleagues speak on the issue.
Senator McEwen, higher education.
Yeah, well, I was just going to jump in real quick here because, again, I'm kind of like Bill. This is not an area of my expertise either, so I wanted to maybe give the senator maybe a little bit more time on this. But again, we got to get our enrollment numbers right. I don't think free college is the answer either, but I do support more money for our state colleges. I think the community colleges are really important. It's a great value. I'm going to flip it over to Senator McEwen at this point, but again, I wish I could add more. But
the floor has been yielded to you, Senator McEwen. Higher education.
I'll take it. Thank you. No, this is a good discussion. I do agree. One of the big issues in higher education that we're seeing is just how faculty are not being paid adequately. And this especially goes at our universities for faculty who are not long term. They might be just on a contract to teach a class or two. They try to get as many classes as they can. They don't have any kind of job security. They don't have benefits. They're basically acting as contractors. Our universities have leaned into doing that to save money, and that's being done on the backs of those teaching professionals. So that's not okay. And that just brings me back to this issue of, you hear this a lot from some of our more conservative colleagues, that nothing is free, right? There's no free lunch. Of course, there's no free lunch. What it is it a matter of having pride in our community, enough pride in our community and our people to say that the wealthiest amongst us, the wealthiest individuals and corporations, are going to pay their fair share of taxes. And we are going to provide these basic public goods for our people. And out of that, when we do that, we have a society and a community that can thrive, that can compete and outcompete our neighboring states around the country. And I just really want to make sure that it's truly understood that, of course, none of this is free. We all pay taxes. We pay taxes on our income. We pay property taxes. We pay sales taxes. But we should get something from that. We should get quality public services from the taxes that we pay. And the taxation should be fair.
And that is going to be our last comment for the evening. I want to thank our panel this evening for a great discussion. I want to invite our viewers to return next week. I want to remind you about the Minnesota channel, where you can see daily updates on the legislative session. And I want to remind you that you can call in with your questions between now and when we come back to you next week. We look forward to being with you next week and all the weeks that follow until the legislature goes home. Thank you and good night.
Your Legislators is made possible by the Minnesota Corn Growers Association. From developing best practices that help farmers better protect our natural resources to the latest innovations in corn-based plastics, Minnesota corn farmers are proud to invest in third-party research, leading to a more sustainable future for our local communities. Minnesota Farmers Union, standing for agriculture, working for farmers. On the web at mfu.org.